It's time for your Low Country real estate market update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm your host, Brian Beatty. Thanks so much for joining me today as we talk about the real estate market. If this is your first time tuning in, I provide you with expert news and reviews of the housing market, both nationally, regionally, and locally here in the Charleston area. Somebody that's been in the top 1% of agents here for the past decade, every year in a row, represented over 1,000 homeowners. And so I relay my stories and my experiences to you, the consumer, in an effort to help you become more informed about the real estate market so that when it comes time for you to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, you know the proper questions to ask. You understand what's happening in the market, and you can make the most out of your transaction, your relationship with your real estate agent, and ultimately have a good experience. So I have a lot of fun stuff planned for you today. I want to first start and just go back in time a little bit and talk about what happened in 2018. I want to compare our local market all the way going back to 2014. What's happened over the past several years in our market? What do I think is going to change? What's going on right now? What's kind of the appetite or the flavor of buyers or sellers or investors as they're looking at the market and the dynamics within it, so that you guys have a good understanding of what I'm experiencing as I'm communicating with buyers and sellers on a regular basis. So I want to talk about what happened last year. I want to talk about what's going on right now, so you have a really firm understanding of our current market. And I want to separate all the stuff that you might read online that has, it's very driven by the national real estate market. And of course, media has a very interesting way of spinning things and focusing more on the negative than the positives. And so I just want to give you guys an idea of what's happening in our market right now. And then I want to talk to the sellers out there for a little while. I want to help people understand what happens when a property is on the market and it seems like things are going okay. You're getting showings, but you're not getting offers. It's not selling. What can you do? What are some of the reasons why things like that happen? And what do we typically do as a real estate team when we're faced with representing a seller that's previously been on the market, which, by the way, over 60% of the listings we represent and sell were previously on the market with another real estate agent. So it's something I can talk about at length and with experience. So that's what we have planned over the course of the next hour here on the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Now, if you'd like to reach out to me, you'd like to talk about buying a home, selling a home, investing in real estate in a few different ways, I can be reached at 843-345-1273. Again, that's 843-345-1273. Or you can visit my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. And I want to give a big shout out to my marketing manager, Sam O'Neill, on my team. He has taken all of our previous radio shows and he's put them on YouTube and iTunes and Google Play and Spotify, all kinds of different areas. Choose your favorite listening device or service, and we're on there. Just search for the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show and like us on Facebook. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show is the name of our Facebook page, where we have a lot of information there that we can't quite get to on this program because, believe it or not, an hour sometimes just isn't enough time to get through everything we want to talk about. So the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show is our Facebook page. Listingsincharleston.com is our website, and 843-345-1273, that's 345-1273, is the way to reach me directly to talk about your interest in buying, selling, or investing in real estate. So let's talk about what happened last year. Now that all the data is here and we can really say with certainty what happened throughout 2018. And if you go back to 2017, that was a market that was it had a lot of renewed optimism. It was fueled by, stock market strength, and wages were increasing, and the environment for home sales was incredibly competitive. You were seeing multiple offers. You were seeing buyers that, rather than feeling like, everybody wants a deal, right? And so for buyers, they felt like rather than getting a great deal on the house, the deal, quote unquote, for them was getting the house. In some instances, buyers were slightly overpaying for property because that was the home they wanted to live in. It was also fueled by low inventory and low interest rates. But after several years of rising prices and low inventory, it just became a little harder for buyers to make sense out of paying top dollar for property. They became a little more selective in their purchase choices. And of course, affordability last year reached a 10-year low. We had 4 separate interest rate hikes from the Federal Reserve. And if you look at national prices, they rose about 53% from February of 2012 to September of 2018. When you adjust that for inflation, it doesn't sound quite as good. It's about 40%. But the national median household income that was reported just a little while ago had a year-over-year increase of 1.8%, but home prices went up 5.5%. So obviously that kind of a gap just isn't very sustainable over an indefinite period of time. But prices for this year, 2019, are still expected to rise. It's not like prices are dipping down across the board. There are several areas in Charleston where we're starting to see those price corrections happen, but it's going to be at a much lower or slower pace. The rate by which properties are appreciating in value will start to go down. And so I want to hit on a few different areas in which, I'd like to just give you some quick facts here. If you look at new listings, properties that hit the market, last year in 2018, we had 24,259 properties enter the market. That was up just a little under 1% from 2017, but it's up from 20,000 new listings in 2014. When you look at pending sales or properties that went under contract, we were actually down a little more than 1% compared to 2017. Same thing with closings. We were down 1.4%. Part of the reason for that, just so you understand, is that inventory has continued to go down. Back in 2014, we had almost 6,300 homes available for sale at any given point in time in our MLS, our local area. But in 2018, it was at 5,100. It dipped down below 5,000 for several months. It was down 5% from 2017. So with less choices, obviously, at some point, we're going to have less closings. And if you look at the median sales price, because of the low inventory and because that for the majority of the year, we had attractive interest rates, we're going to excuse the fourth quarter. We don't know what in the world they were thinking there. And obviously the market reacted in a very negative way. But median sales prices across the board were up 6%. The median sales price in the Charleston Tri-County area is now $266,500. That's up from $215,000 in 2014. If you look at days on market, we went from 55 days on market on average in 2017 to 52. Not a huge change there. And again, inventory is low, demand is relatively high throughout the course of 2018. So it went down 5.5%, but really we shaved 3 days off that average. And if you look at the difference between the original asking price and the sales price, on average, across the board, 96.6%. But I do want to, I'll get into that in a little greater detail a little later on in the show. I want to focus for just a moment on distress sales, foreclosures, short sales, corporate-owned property. Back when I first started this show 6 years ago, there was still an element of that. I think back in 2011, the statistic was about 30% of our inventory was in distress. Back in, from 2009 until, 2013, really, I was doing a lot of short sales, a lot of foreclosures, representing buyers, representing investors, representing banks, representing over 100 sellers and getting them out of their house because they owed more than it was worth. And they either wanted to stop making payments, which was a strategic default in which we got them out of those situations, or something happened. They were truly in distress. They lost their job. Something happened and they could no longer afford the mortgage payments on their house. And so I'd negotiate with the bank on their behalf and have that bank accept less than the amount of their mortgage because we couldn't sell it for that. And that was a very common situation. But if you fast forward to 2018, less than 5% of our inventory was in distress, which was down 14% from the year before, which, again, when we talk about percentages, I do want to say just very quickly, take some of this stuff with a grain of salt. We went from 5.7% of our total inventory being in distress in 2017 to 4.9% being in distress in 2018. So that difference is 14%, which sounds a lot more exciting, I suppose, than saying, hey, we just went down 0.8%. But if you look at the top areas where there was distress, the areas that had market share above 5%, 5% or more of the inventory in these areas were in distress. At 5.8%, it was the greater Somerville area. At 5.9%, it was the greater North Charleston area. At 6.5%, it was James Island. And then at 19.4%, way higher than everything else, Folly Beach. So if you look at the 4-year change in price in all properties across the board, I'm not talking about distress, just in general, the 4-year increase in pricing was 24%. But if you look at the 4-year change in the price of foreclosures, it was up 65.5%. In most instances, especially when we're talking about a short sale, the bank is going to want very close to what that property is worth, and those things take time. I mean, I remember short sales that took as short as, I think I got one done in a little over a month, which has to be a record somewhere, to as long as 18 months. Why would a buyer stick around in an environment where prices are rising and interest rates are rising and get locked into a price and on day one, but not be able to buy it until 9 months later? It means that the deal, quote unquote, that they were getting on that distress sale has been erased just due to the time it takes to buy those properties. So when I'm going to talk to investors in just a little bit here, but they're having to get very creative about finding properties to invest in, to flip, to buy and hold. Most of the deals that I have ever found when I've flipped or I've bought investment property have just been people that need to get out of a situation. There was an estate sale and they wanted to cash out. You have to be plugged into a real estate agent that's having those kinds of conversations on a regular basis to find those needles in the haystack. I mean, my team does 20,000 outbound calls every week. And it's very rare that we find somebody that's in such a desperate situation that they'll take enough of a discount on the property in order to sell it now for a cash deal. Let's talk about new construction for just a little bit. The top 4 areas for new construction as it relates to market share in 2018, 25% or more of the inventory was new construction. At 28.1%, Upper Mount Pleasant. The Wando-Cainhoy area, Clements Ferry Road, 30.1%. Goose Creek, 35.9%. Moncks Corner was, of course, included in that. And then Johns Island, which, for the second year in a row is going to take the cake for new construction, 45.2% of the total market share is new construction. Isn't that interesting? Now, let's talk for just a second about showings, because we have the ability to track when we work with sellers, how many showings should you be getting on average every month? Are we in line with what that expectation is? Are we getting more? Are we getting less? It's a good indicator of whether or not buyers believe in the perceived value of your property based on the way that particular agent is marketing it. And so in 2018, 13 was the median number of showings before a property accepted a contract. I have seen numbers as low as, certainly under 10. I've seen some that are, 40, 50. Depends on the area, depends on the price range. But if you look at the top 3 areas that were getting the most number of showings per listing per month, it was West Ashley, the Dorchester Road corridor of North Charleston and Somerville, and James Island. The peak month in which we had the most showings was March, which isn't a big surprise. The majority of buyers are looking in the spring. But in January, it was 6.3. In March, it was 6.8. You know what happens between January and March? A huge number of new listings hit the market in March and April. And so you start to see things reduce starting in April because more and more inventory hits the market. There are more choices. And we're going to talk in just a little bit about some of the strategy associated with selling a property. If your home's on the market, as an example, if a property's on the market and it's getting showings, but it's not getting the contract, there's probably a reason why. And I'm going to tell you what those reasons might be just a little later on in the program. But let me run through the median price increases, and in some cases decreases, in some of the different areas of Charleston. And I'm just going to rifle through this data. On Daniel Island, prices were up 15.1%. The Dorchester Road corridor, 2.7%. Downtown Charleston, 16.8%. Edisto, 10.3%. Folly Beach, 13.6%. Goose Creek, Moncks Corner, 9.8%. The greater North Charleston area, 2.8%. Greater Somerville area, 6%. Isle of Palm, 7.2%. James Island, 6.2%. Johns Island, 10.1%. Lower Mount Pleasant, 5.4%. Rural Berkeley County, 3.4%. The St. George and rural Dorchester County area, 18.8% increase. Sullivan's Island, 14%. Upper Peninsula of downtown Charleston, above the crosstown, was 1.3%. Upper Mount Pleasant, 6.4%. The Wando-Cainhoy area, 35.4%. And West Ashley, 6%. There were 4 areas that had a decrease in the median sales price in the Charleston greater area. Hanahan was down 0.7%. So was the Hollywood Ravenel Megget area off 162 as you pass through West Ashley. Kiel was down 15.6%, and Seabrook was down 12%. But there is such a big differential in the prices of some of those properties that I wouldn't read too much into that. In fact, when we're talking about these percentages, you really need to understand that real estate is local. It will always be local. Your home's value in that particular neighborhood might have different trends than a home that's slightly smaller or slightly larger in the neighborhood right next door. It's very, very specific. The biggest problem for residential real estate this year, in my opinion, is going to be us, humans. We have this tendency to overthink everything. We also have this belief that we can time the market. And so when we instill fear, or not when we, but when fear is instilled into the buying process, the fear of buying too high, the fear of catching a falling sword, it creates delays, it creates doubt. And ultimately, it's going to create a decline in closings, in pending contracts. It's going to cause properties to sit on the market a little more. And it's going to be a very telling sign to you as a seller as to whether you are priced correctly or not. But if we have positive economics, if we have reasonable interest rates, reasonable lending standards, and frankly, we have more homes hit the market, we're going to achieve a little bit more of a balance in our real estate market. So how does that affect you as a seller or as a buyer or as an investor or as a renter? I'm going to tell you that when we come back. So stick around. This is the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Remember to reach out to me if you'd like to talk about buying, selling, or investing in real estate. My number is 843. It's my cell phone, 843-345-1273. Feel free to call or text that number, 843-345-1273. Visit us online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. And remember to check us out on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, all those different channels. We've got all of our previous radio shows on there. And like the Brian Beatty Real Estate Team Facebook page. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Visit Brian Beatty's website at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on The Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.